going down the street, I saw there's a new law office there, just right down from the post office was, and I called about Bob.
He's living life with ease in Florida.
Is he?
No, he's not going out much because that's kind of a hot spot.
It is a hot spot, yeah. And I just had the big buildings going down the street. Super.
Congratulations to your son. It's really awesome.
Well, it's awesome, except he's been stuck at airborne school for the last 2 months since he graduated. But you never know if it's going to be good 2 minutes
Okay,
later.
we're live, we have those two participants.
Happy's down there in the University Central Field, so.
You know, Italy right now. He's getting stationed, which I was like, sign-on bonus. You get to live in Italy for 3 years. It's not that rough.
Yeah, I just got it. I wanted it online. Yes, I got the filters in it. But I don't know when we get the replacements. It popped up on my email, as an advertisement, so see what it was like. How did you know I was using one that my clients made for me? Well, that's what I was using also. She retired and I didn't do it. She says, I think I just make masks. So a friend of mine started doing that, and I got one from the society and one from the life.
All right, it's 7 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. City of Hagerstown, July 29th. And first of all, we introduce the planning commissioners who are with us today. On my far left is Judy Wheeler, Ron Thomas, Jim Stern. On my far right, Shelley McIntyre, who's our ex officio member, a member, of course, of the city council, and Colin Muscular to my immediate right. With us, without missing tonight, is Chris Davis. Also, we have Steve Mockmiller, who's our zoning administrator, and Megan Blank. Click. Anyway, sorry, Megan, my apologies. There's our planner and Debbie Calhoun, who's our faithful secretary. So our first item tonight is a public review meeting, which means that we do invite testimony from the public. How do we somebody's watching us and want to get in? How did they do that?
Yeah, we have a couple people on right now. I think they're already here.
If somebody else that wants to get in, how can they do that?
They would have received instructions from us prior to the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So those who have not already signed up, we will keep the record open for 10 days, most likely. We'll have a motion from the commissioners so you can email or contact staff and send your comments. Thank you. The way we're going to conduct this meeting is first we'll have testimony or orientation from staff who will educate all of us about tonight. Questions, answers from to staff, followed by public testimony. At that time, I will first ask for those who want to speak for, and those who are opposed. So I am sure that we've gotten all the possible public testimony. That session. Reserve time for a few more questions and answers in light of what might have been brought up during public testimony. Then we will entertain a motion. I will entertain a motion back to us at a future meeting. This whole process will repeat itself as it goes forward with our recommendation to the mayor council. They also will publicize this meeting, and they will have a meeting very similar to this, where they'll also publicly be invited to testify before they make their final decision. It's the next stage of this process. So, Megan, you're going to...
So it's the public hearing for the landmark overlay at Station House. So first off, what is a landmark overlay? It's a rezoning tool mainly for historic properties. Creates an overlay on top of the original zoning, and it helps facilitate historic preservation of the property by declaring it a historic landmark. For the site details, it's Sailor House, again located in Kiwanis Park. The existing zoning is POM, which is professional office mixed use. And it's a vacant stone house that was built between 1790 and 1810. It's also documented in the Maryland Inventory of Historic Places, which happened in 1975. And then in 2015, the Washington County Historical Trust began to work with the city to try to rehabilitate the Sailor House. Here's a Google satellite imagery here. You can see the park. And then I can zoom in on Google Maps after the presentation, get a better view. And then again, here's another Google Map shot, just orienting where Kiwanis Park is in relation to the rest of the city. And then here are also some current photos of the house, just how it looks on the exterior right now. And then the proposal, the intent is to preserve Sailor House as an important landmark in the city. And the landmark designation is necessary in order to qualify the building for certain grant funding and also to allow for improvements in the floodplain, because there is a lot of floodplain on the site. And then the landmark overlay would only be for the physical building, so just surrounding the building's borders and not any other part of the surrounding land. So the Historic District Commission did review the application and made a recommendation to the Planning Commission to approve the application for a landmark overlay district at the Sailor House. The HDC members were in favor of protecting the building through landmark designation. They observed that it meets the criteria and is also in pretty good condition considering its age. Planning Commission members agreed with the motivations behind creating the overlay, and they will make a recommendation to Mayor and Council after our 10-day public review period. So after today, we'll have the public input open for 10 days, so you can submit input in that way. And then I'd also like to enter into the record the certificate of advertisement and the Planning Commission file by reference. We also have 2 emails that serve as public input that I'd like to enter into the record, both supporting designating Sailor House as a landmark. And I think you guys received copies of both emails prior to the meeting. And that's everything. Again, the record is open for 10 days, so I guess at our next Planning Commission meeting, we'll discuss input we've received, and then Planning Commission will make a recommendation to Mayor and Council.
If that's the motion.
Yeah.
Just want to point out, just clearly for the record, this was in front of us for our orientation at our last meeting, and based upon what we saw then, we were generally in favor of pursuing this. We have not made our final decision.
Right.
That final decision cannot be made until after all public testimony has been received. I don't want any misunderstanding on that point. Any questions from staff? Of staff?
I have copies of the historical background if anyone wants to see that.
I just fumbled on what papers you talked about. Thank you.
certificate of advertisement.
So then I guess we're ready to move on to session. I understand we have someone in the audience, Mr. Brubaker, who is wanting to speak for, and is asked to speak first, which is fine. But all speakers, where do they come to? Oh, there. If you're, Marty, you're there. Others will be joining us via Zoom, but I ask you to begin your presentation with your name and your address. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I did make a note there that I prefer the Oliver who should be on Zoom. If she would speak first, I would call her on the amendment.
Okay, yeah, it goes from your name up to her name, but that's fine. So, Ms. Aldridge, then I guess, are you there? You unmuting her?
Yeah, I have muted her.
Ms. Aldridge? Ms. Aldridge?
Am I still muted?
You're
I
not.
can hear you.
So if you can start off, please, with your name and address, and then, yes, we can hear you. If you could start off, please, with your name and address, and then your testimony. And can you hear us?
She can't hear us.
She can't hear us, it doesn't sound.
We can hear her, she can't hear us.
She doesn't unmute us.
And can you hear us?
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hello?
Hello?
This is Ann Aldrich. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
She doesn't know that.
This is Ann Aldrich. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, but we can't hear you.
Oh, my gosh.
Hello?
On the phone, yeah.
She can see us.
No.
Yeah, our volume's on. I can do it.
Yeah, so you just unmuted.
Fortunately.
Can the other caller hear us? Megan?
What's that?
Can the other caller hear us? I can't read the name.
As in Austin.
Easier for Dolly to hold.
I'm just curious if he could hear us then.
Paul?
I guess, Mr. Brubaker, you want to take over? Yes, I will. Thank you.
My name is Martin Brubaker. I reside at 10825 Harvard Drive, Hagerstown 21742. I'm here to support the city, actually, because this is their application as a member of the board of the Washington County Historic Trust, with whom we as well, and also for the effort to the trust is taken to preserve the structure.
This is Ann Aldrich. Can you hear me?
She must not have her. I wonder if somebody could text her. Look at the corner there. I have her. No, see down in the corner of the first, maybe that's somebody else. Oh, that's some, yeah, that's.
Yeah, there's nothing from my end I can do.
Okay.
Should help to have her number. You want to text her?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to.
Just right here. Sorry. Okay. Basically, I didn't plan on detail. I understand there are 55 pages of
testimony or thereabouts, supporting the historic aspects of this. There's many other things happening with those historic aspects, but we have this status in order to continue to do the work that we're doing, working with the city. The city actually recommended taking this route in order to maintain our efforts. So basically, I'm just here to support it and answer any general questions that you all might have from the material or anything like that. It's a circa 1800 house in very good condition. So I don't want to take your time with an extensive reiteration of the historic aspects of this property.
I appreciate that. Is there any questions of this expert?
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, well, that satisfies us. Thank you. You're okay? We're okay.
Okay. I'm glad, again, to answer any questions or staff knows where to reach me. And it's good to see you all.
And I think we can presume that your colleague, if she were able to make her presentation, would be, speaking in favor of it as well.
Oh, yes, she should. Yes. She is, I can say that she would be speaking on the record for, she can text you that on the record.
Yeah, and she can also submit something and I can just have it officially on the record. Since,
Yeah. She assumed a lot of the testimony that's in your packet. But I don't want to recite material you have. I think it's pretty self-evident. There's not a block on these things.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other testimony for or against? This portion of the public review meeting. And those who tried to be here. Staff, have any closing comments? Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I move the record remain open for 10 days for additional comments.
Second. Any discussion on motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? One abstention, yes.
I did.
Yeah. So the motion is passed. And we move on. Scheduled meeting, where we ask the public to watch us, but not to participate. Begin with a roll call. I've already done that at the beginning of the meeting. I hope that suffices. And we do not have the minutes yet for the July 8th. So next meeting, move on into a development review. The first one is 2101 Merrill Avenue, Giant Southern Wood. Final plat.
This is the final plat re-subdivision for Great Southern Waterford in the South End Industries LLC at 1201 Western Avenue, case S 2020-02. The purpose of this plat is to remove 2.42 acres of land from the South End Investors LLC property, commonly known as the southern portion of the South End Shopping Center, and merge it into the adjacent Great Southern Wood property. This area is a lightly used parking lot area on the extreme southern end of the shopping center, adjacent to the pipe stem driveway that provides access to the industrial facility. This plat accomplishes a transfer that was made practical by a zoning map amendment that was requested by both parties. The area to be transferred was rezoned from CG Commercial General to IG Industrial General. Rezoning takes effect on July 3rd, so it is now in place. The new line of subdivision matches the new zoning district line established by the comprehensive zoning plan. Due to the pandemic, PRC review is suspended until further notice, therefore there was no PRC meeting. The following agencies have provided approval of the plat: Planning, Health, Water, Soil Conservation District, Fire Marshal, Real Estate Highway Administration, Wastewater, Parks and Engineering. Therefore, staff recommends the plat be approved. The applicant is advised that in order to use the open parking lot for trailer staging and storage, which is the intended purpose of the a site plan conforming to current design standards must be submitted to and approved by the planning commission. And I will make the record that that has been submitted, so that's currently pending, working its way through the process, and that'll come before you all within a month, I would think, if not at your next meeting, probably in the following. Therefore, staff recommends approval. And Ed is here. We have the plat up on the overhead and also color illustrations here as well.
So it's not the giant solid wood, it's the great solid wood. Any questions of staff or the engineer, representative? Sorry?
Can I see a Google view?
Look at this.
Anybody want to see Google? No, I'll be fine.
We've kind of talked this issue to death.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah. Process, so.
Yep. One of those is, motion, yes.
I was going to make a motion to approve the final plat.
I'll second. Any discussion on the motion? You ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Unanimous. Okay. Can't mess this up. Next one is Verizon.
The great and powerful.
Now that Sprint and T-Mobile merged.
Okay. Before we get started, I'll give you a little bit of background on this. We have 3 plans that are pending regarding, actually 4 plans pending regarding this site. We've had a site plan currently pending, working its way through the review process for a 7-Eleven on one of the proposed lots closer down to the Walmart. And then for this, we have the site plan, we have a plat that carves this development up into several lots. Plus, we have forest conservation because the northern 4 acres or so on the site is not included in the forest conservation plan, that everything south of there down to Route 40 is part of. We know what the process would be. The odd thing is that this particular lot for the Verizon store is bisected by half of it is covered by the existing forest conservation plan for the rest of the shopping center, and then the other half of it isn't. So the developer, they need to meet the asset plan to be reviewed, but we'll have an official final forest conservation plan to you at your next meeting, and self-report not allowing the site plan to move forward with conditions.
So that should be a condition of our approval.
Correct.
Which means it's not official until we have approved the forest conservation.
Correct, right. And I sent out an email to you all with a memo explaining that, providing you the draft, which is 98% what you're going to see at your next meeting as far as dealing with forest conservation for that portion. So with that, I'll move into the report. This is Verizon store site plan, Bolingbroke Boulevard, ZS 2020-07. The site plans for the construction of a 4,200 square foot, 1-story retail building and associated 24-space parking lot. Also part of the construction will be part of the intended shopping center driveway network, including the right and right out driveway entrance on the Bolingbroke Boulevard and the frontage road that connects to the existing driveway behind the credit union. A subdivision plat is pending for this property. That may not be quite right, and it's not something that will not be here when you're presenting tonight. Other than the existing lines around the Bulldog Federal Credit Union, the property line shown in the site plan reflect on the plat, which again, you'll see at your next meeting. Subdivision also involves a forest conservation plan for the 4.9 acres. Again, that's not officially on your plate for tonight, but we mentioned that for the record. Following agencies have provided approvals: health, fire marshal, wastewater, water, and electric. Conditional approval has been provided by the city engineer, and copies of their conditional approval with 7 conditions is appended to your staff report. Planning recommends approval subject to 2 conditions: 1, building elevations, like cut sheets and photometric plans submitted separately from the site plan be document be embedded as pages in the plan and numbered accordingly. Number 2, if the plat and forest conservation plan are not ready by your meeting, no building permit be issued for this building until the forest conservation plan is approved by the planning commission.
So that's the condition instead of flat out approval. You want us to go ahead and approve the site plan with the understanding no building permits will be.
We anticipated, we don't anticipate any reason why it wouldn't be. Far from actually getting on this agenda, so. Of where the store is going to be, which is to the right of the Bulldog Credit Union, pending site plan for the 7-Eleven with gas pumps is to the left of the credit union. Again, you'll be seeing that in the relatively near future. We have the site plan and landscaping plan, and then we also have the building elevations provided in your report for the actual building itself. That's all I have there.
Could you please orient for me by pointing at one of the maps we have of where you're anticipating the proposed reforestation will be?
Sure. Did you get that one out for me?
Because this drawing does not help me.
Yeah, understood. Okay.
Would that help you? No, that doesn't help you.
How are disposal?
There we go. You got it, I got it. Here we are.
If you could put one to the satellite. Actually, you can zoom out. Look farther. Okay. This is where the Verizon store is going to go.
Okay.
Forest conservation is going to be over in here. And that's actually the ordinance, the forest conservation ordinance prioritizes environmentally sensitive areas. This whole area here is floodplain. The ultimate development have a forest conservation area is going to be to the west of that. Thank you. So the drawing that you had, actually, I can show you the alignment. Yeah, actually, that's probably where it will come out that here's Crossing Drive. And this is that kind of low area behind it.
Okay.
And that is, the forest conservation ordinance prioritizes it, so that's what the ordinance says, that's where it all is. We're not going to get street tree credit, we're doing feed in lieu, it's all going to be handled, the entire commitment.
Other questions, Steve?
Oh, one thing I did want to point out, one of the things that we amended our ordinances for a couple of years ago was to require that all stores, when they come on the street, have pedestrian direct sidewalks, so people aren't walking up their sidewalks. In this particular case, the way we handled it, by the way, there is going to be sidewalks interior to the development as well, but rather than trying to drive a sidewalk through here, because there is some topographic issues, this area, issues in this area, it's a depressed area, where some of those stormwater management's going to go. The sidewalk is just, when you walk up this small section of the entrance road, and there'll be a sidewalk on the side of the parking lot. So perfectly fine. Not the street is reasonable, but it'll be perfectly fine. Pedestrian access street, going from the Lord.
Well, I also see on this site plan, a sidewalk on the, as I see it, the left side of that drive between two entrances to the parking lot. I guess in my screen, I can see that also. Okay.
Walking. That's when they could go.
When someone comes through with the development for lot 16, there will be adding sidewalks on their side of the entrance road too. Okay?
Understood.
Thank you. My other question is there going to be a dumpster?
Yes. Yeah. That's been, right below where it says proposed drive. It looks like a turnaround area, but it's actually a dumpster.
Oh. Any other questions? So the only contingency here is approval of the forest conservation. It doesn't have to be flat, because that carries its own weight.
And actually, what I'm looking at is I would try to get the embedded on the flat, so we don't have two separate tops. So, okay. And you also have city engineer.
City engineer. So there's two things we should consider in our motion.
Move to approve the site plan, contingent upon engineering department comments and the subsequent approval of the forest conservation plan.
I'll second that. Any discussion on the motion? We ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I need to take your limits off your equipment form, come forward with it.
So it passes unanimously.
Tractor supply, this evening.
Yes, it is at the end of the agenda, end of the.
Okay, the next one, Garland Grove Boulevard.
That's the plat, we removed that from the agenda.
That's been removed, right? Correct. City Center.
This is site plan 2019-03 for City Chapel at 227 East Washington Street. This has been previously approved by this body twice before with temporary approvals. Their temporary approvals are to expire in the next week or two. So we are bringing it back to you for further review and consideration. I'll read my report into the record. In August of last year, the Planning Commission approved the site plan for a religious facility to operate for temporary facilities, attend porta pots, et cetera, at the above property. The approval was for 180 days subject to renewal. After 180 day period is renewed for another 180 day period and set to expire in August. The applicant is before you again for approval of the site plan. Staff has observed no deleterious impacts to the use, however, remains experiences heavy use. Staff notes now that the use has been approved on a temporary basis twice and has been in use for over a year. Further action by the commission should be either a motion not to approve the site plan or to approve it with no further temporary time considerations. Staff will note that the ordinance amendments went into effect recently that prohibits uses to be established on an ongoing basis for facilities intended for temporary use and occupancy. You will find a photo of the existing conditions on the following page. If you have any questions, contact me at your convenience. I provided you the photograph that I took of the hillside. It is what it is. What staff's recommendation is how many more temporaries we're going to get.
Well, I was going, why we only have two choices? Why can't we do another temporary?
You can. I'm not saying that you can. Staff is thinking out loud. How long are we going to be doing this one?
Yeah, so that, in my mind, it's something that, I mean, right now, it's basically working, right? I mean, the site is still in decent shape, there are no problems with the service, still shows no excessive wear and tear or erosion or anything else, no complaints from neighbors. But I agree also that it shouldn't be permanent. So I would like us to continue on in 180-day temporary. That's my thoughts on it.
Do we want to include a clause that this is the last, or there's a limitation to how many extensions there will be given?
Okay, that's, everybody, you can do that, but
I recommend that you not do that because you end up boxing yourself into a corner.
this bill, we still have, we have a hand on this, that this guy's these folks are all going to continue to work with us, and like they have in the past, and we, if we do a permanent approval, or, a temporary approval and then a denial, I just don't want to see us do a permanent approval. And I see no reason right now to do a denial, so.
I think because if we're just doing another 180-day extension, we're not boxing ourselves in. We know say no the next time.
That's right.
Well, I think in today's COVID climate, I think that it's very important that we extend it at least for the 180 days. Yeah. So, and are there any, is there any plan? Do you represent City Chapel? I'm sorry. Hi. Oh, hi. Hi. Pastor Zach. Hi, Pastor Zach. Shelley McIntyre. Is there plans for a permanent site building at any point in time? Or is this the model that's...
Our hope would be to stay on 227 East Marston Street. It currently costs $500,000. So I think better word would be hope rather than plan. Meredith has been really good to us and has required almost nothing from us. The church would have to grow tremendously, or get making places I haven't considered to own the land. So the only building possibilities would be coming to some kind of an agreement with Meredith to go further. I think the smallest vision we would have would be like a, you ever been to Antietam Rec? Mm-hmm. They have a beautiful facility for in and outdoor activities under that roof. Something that was built in '84, so something more modern along those lines. If we were going to take a first step towards solid structure. But I couldn't honestly tell you 3 years or 5 years or anything like that.
Okay.
So. Did I hear you say that Meredith wants $500,000 for that land? Well, it's the parking lot, but not the parking garage and the grassy knoll.
Ouch.
Yeah. considered negotiating it, so we'd have to have a little more power at this point.
As it currently stands, this operation is a non-conforming use. It was approved by you originally under the zoning that was in effect at the time. Since then, if somebody's looking to establish a permanent use of any sort of church, store, business, anything, you got to have permanent facilities. So they are grandfathered in at this location under these circumstances, from a zoning standpoint.
And the location is, it's a big outreach there. That particular spot on a Sunday, I'm sure you get a lot of walk-up customers, right? Which is very helpful. So in my opinion, I think that due to the COVID climate now and the fact that, a permanent structure there's some hope there, which is good, but I think that extending it for the 180 days, that's my position on this.
I agree.
All right.
So I would like to
Yes.
propose a motion that we approve for an extra 108 days.
Yep. Very good.
Second.
Motion made and seconded then to again approve on a temporary basis this use for another 180 days. We're all ready to vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? There are none, so it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to keep dragging you back with everything.
Okay.
We'll be
Stay
here.
in touch. You know, where's the position perfectly for you to have a program. Outdoor church, driving church.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have, Point Broadband, Piedmont.
Do we have an applicant on this one? Is Gary the representative? The engineer I've been working with is Luis. With, Dollar General. Let's try Gary first. Gary, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, are you here? Which project are you here for?
I'm sorry, I was on mute, but I'm having a very hard time hearing you folks, but go ahead.
Project are you here for?
Which project are you?
I'm sorry, I can't, the audio is terrible. I really can't understand what you're saying.
Gary, which project are you here for? Where's the mic? There.
Can you just sign in?
One of the days I'm gonna figure this stuff out.
Can you hear me okay? Yes, okay. Would you like me to make a little presentation?
Which project are you here for?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that.
Which project are you here for?
This is a Point Broadband.
Thank you. All right, let me start forward. Okay. Sorry.
Something to work on.
All right, this is minor site plan, SA 2020-05, 2005 Mill Street, corner of Baltimore Street, Point Broadband, Point Broadcasting of the Piedmont Broadband Internet Facility. This is a 0.43 acre parking lot previously used by Washington County Hospital. The developer proposes to erect a building to contain equipment for the provision of broadband internet in the city. The site plan includes a 12-foot by 28-foot utility building that is 1 story and 11 feet in height, Redevelopment of the site includes removing asphalt within 15 feet of the two public streets and within 10 feet of the south property line. Installation of landscaping, installation of a 6-foot tall chain link fence coated with black PVC material with a gate on each of the two frontages. New sidewalk will be installed along East Baltimore Street. A stairway will connect the two levels of the parking lot. The parking lot has basically, it's like a split level parking lot. It's got about a 5-6 foot grade difference between the two levels. A 40 kilowatt diesel generator will be located to the east of the control building. Due to extreme topography along the west side of the property, the surface of the adjacent alley will be roughly equal to the roof line of the proposed building. So if you're standing in the alley on the west side of this, your feet are at roof level with the building you're looking down into. The applicant seeks waivers to the two following requirements. One, provision that parking bays begin and end with landscaped islands. And two, landscaping to be installed along the west property line. And the purpose of that is that the west property line looks like this. It's just so staff has no objection to these requests. The property is currently mostly uncontrolled paving, and the proposed improvements, including the provision of a 15-foot landscape front yard across the two front street frontages, and installation of the sidewalk will be a radical improvement over existing conditions. Landscaping is being added on each side of the parking bay on the lower lot, and the use of brewer areas is mostly to just regularize the shape of parking stalls instead of putting landscape out. The area along the alley is an extreme topographic drop-off into the site, with the dwellings to the west having a commanding view looking over top of the site. It's more like a cliff, and the likelihood of any landscaping taking the hold of this area is low. A pedestrian standing in the alley looking to the east will be able to more than look over the improvements to the property. The fence being 6 feet tall and the building being 11 feet tall, the topographic change between the alley and the surface of the upper lot is about 10 feet. Existing trees and vegetation along the alley, however, will be undisturbed. There is some natural growth in there, and they're planning to leave that where it is rather than take it out. Staff did receive the waiver form. We have that in hand, so everything is in order as far as the paperwork. Following agencies have provided approvals: fire marshal, planning subject to the waivers, city engineer, wastewater, and water. Conditional approval has been provided by the electric division pending information on service load information, which may result in relocation of the service on the site and the meter depending on the information provided, but we would get into those issues anyway. The electric division staff does not believe this will affect the project layout. Staff recommends approval subject to compliance with the conditions cited by the electric division and approval of the waivers. The plan that we have, maybe if you could give us the landscaping plan page. This is the old hospital site here. The city electrical shed is down here. There's another small parking lot here. This entire site, other than right along the center where there's the drop off, this is essentially all parking. Right on the sidewalks. And they're going to be putting in 15 feet of landscaping here, 10 feet of landscaping there. So we're going to be pulling up existing asphalt. The fence will be set back. It'll have landscaping in accordance with the ordinance in front of it. Again, given the current circumstances, radical improvement. So area.
What is the
building? The building is in the bottom of the right hand. Toward the bottom right, there outside.
That rectangle?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Kick it up. I think given the current status of the plot, this is definitely an improvement. Yep. Sure, I see that maybe ever.
Okay.
Write something on a piece of paper and hold it up in front of the camera.
Oh my God,
Sign language.
this is great.
Okay.
There are going to be some trees. Good job. So there are going to be some trees on it.
Nope. Members of the commission, this is Gary Musiano. I'm the architect for Broadpoint, and Mr. Bachmuller's presentation of the conditions of the site and our development are very accurate. It's a very tiny site. It's about 0.43 acres. What we're planning on doing is essentially erecting an unmanned equipment shelter to facilitate internet access and broadband access to Hagerstown. It's an extraordinarily minor development, but yet we're going to improve the site considerably by conforming with the new sidewalks being installed along East Baltimore Street and landscaping around the site, as well as some new paving. And we're actually diminishing the impervious area. Right now, the site is nearly completely paved, and we'll be removing pavement to install the landscaping. The site will be surrounded by a 6-foot tall black chain link fence with 2 gates at the existing vehicle entry points, one being on East Baltimore and one being to the east on Mill Street. It's a 2-tier site, has a higher level and a lower level. We'll be connecting those with a new stair. We actually have no particular need or use for all the parking, but it's just part of the lot. And so we'll be landscaping and taking care of all that. The site requires electrical power and then connection to the telephone system. And the electrical powers are pretty straightforward. It's 200 amps, single phase service, very similar to a single family home. We'll also have a small generator on site. It's a 40 kW generator with a weather enclosure and a noise attenuation enclosure. Very, very quiet. And we'll have a meter backboard also on site. Now, the site right now has 2 pole mounted light fixtures. Those existing light fixtures will remain in place. And we'll have a single light fixture over the door in the shelter, which will be on a motion sensor. So when an occupant comes through the door, the light would go on. When they leave, the light goes off. Does anyone have any questions?
I think we're good.
They need a 40K, so somebody sitting on the camera can like stuff like silence.
All right. So the first item I guess we will address is the requested waivers to the landscaping.
I need to be grant the requested waivers to the landscaping.
I'll second. You ready to vote on that? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? And now we have then site plan, with the only other condition is final approval by light, electric department.
And I would propose that pending approval by the light department, we should move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, Judy, second. You ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? And ready, everything's approved. Jerry, you hear all that?
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Okay. Now we have Western Heights Middle School.
And singles. We just voted Javon Winter, so.
Okay. background on this, and the only reason why this is in front of you is because the parking requirements say that the sufficiency of parking for schools is determination by this body. I can't take that call. If it wasn't for that, this is under, it's under 5,000 square feet. I took it through the administratively, but the issue of parking over here, and then it's got to be good anyway. I'm just using the approval to you all rather than this is one of the site plan for modular classroom building and parking determination for Western Heights Middle School. This is a plan for the addition of 4 classroom modular education building to Western Heights Middle School to be located to the northwest of the existing building. The landscaping, your other it's being brought to you because the ordinance leaves a determination of adequacy of parking to the commission. The proposed addition will have 4 teachers for the staff. No additional parking is proposed. For this plan to be approved, you need to determine whether the parking provided on site meets ordinance requirements of 1 space per employee and ample student park and visitor parking as determined by the planning commission. The staff is followed will consist of approximately 110 teachers and there's 165 parking spaces. And since we have to bring you the plan for your determination on adequacy of parking, we cannot, which we cannot, and have not approved the plan at staff level, and the commission can just roll approval of the plan and put the motion regarding parking. Planning, water, wastewater have provided approval. Conditional approval has been provided by the chief code official and the city engineer. See attached to the provided. And that's all I have. And Gordon Poppenberger is here representing Board of Ed.
One same issue, Steve?
Like I said, one for the fact that the ordinance specifically does not allow me to make a determination of adequacy for parking for schools, and if you use it in your lap, one for that issue, you would need to see.
I don't think parking is going to be an issue. Obviously, we don't have too many middle school students that are going to be driving. The addition of 4 staff members is not egregious based on the amount of parking that's available. I personally do not see an issue with it at all.
So this is a cluster of 4 classrooms with a center entrance court, is that correct?
Yes. One in the building and the other building has steps. So I have 2 exits.
My only concern is that we only have 2 basic exits for 4 rooms.
I'm sure the fire marshal will look at it.
Yeah, and
it's going to be scoped too.
And the other thing is we only have 1 handicap ramp. And my concern is in an elementary school, if you have a handicapped student in building 401, then that's going to be difficult to get from that end to the handicap ramp.
You're saying rooms 4 and 1 are the opposite end from the ramp?
That's exactly right. Pointing that out, safety purposes, someone or somehow that even if it's just 1 handicapped student, they're going to have difficulty getting out of that building if the ramp is necessary. Getting out of that area. I'm concerned, and I know it's not my duty to worry about that. It's the school board to worry about that. I'm just bringing it up for the record.
That's something.
Just looking at it from a safety standpoint, getting that handicapped person from point A to point B. It's 6 feet 8 inches.
What is it?
6 feet 8 inches.
That's why I went for 2 wheelchairs to pass the trigger.
Right.
of those two classrooms. They're on the far end of the classroom, it puts them on the far end of the ramp.
I'll discuss it with the code officials and see if there's an issue.
I'm just bringing it up for discussion. It's probably not my position to design it, but if I were a parent and I had a handicapped child going, and they were assigned to one of those rooms, I would be concerned about that in case of an emergency. Maybe ask the zoning administrator to concerns to the building inspector and the fire marshal. That's we need to decide first issue. Whether we're comfortable with the fact that there's going to be enough adequate parking to cover this.
I think with the addition of 4 additional parking spaces or 4 additional staff members, the amount of parking that's already there is going to be sufficient, given that this is a middle school. We don't have students that are driving. That still allows for over 40 spots for visitors.
I think we're clear there. I don't have any problem with that.
I agree. We all agree on that.
Okay.
So I'd like to propose a motion that we approve the parking situation.
Take it to second now. Motion that we find the parking It's just site plan in front of us. Site plan. Make a motion to accept site plan. Zoning administrator touch base with the building inspector and the fire marshal concerning the safety of our handicapped students being evacuated during an emergency. Second.
And there was also 2 agency conditions.
And including the 2 agency conditions also.
Thank you. You okay with that, Jim?
Yep. All right. Any discussion on the motion? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously also. Next item, Dollar General.
Just prior to the meeting, I received revised building elevations, which I gave you copies of. Really technically, don't look at signage. Really don't get into detail in concept plan, but nonetheless, since it came in, I provided it for your review. This is a sketch plan for stormwater management and identification of needed waivers for the Dollar General store on the south side of East Franklin Street. Robert Holland is here, also Austin Wyman. I think Ethan is part of this as well.
Austin, are you there?
We are here. This is Bob McCollum. We're here. It's very, very difficult to hear you all. We can hear the other people who are called in, but you guys are extremely staticky and break in and out. So I apologize if we can't hear what you're saying.
Other than Robert and Austin.
I could not make out at all what you just said.
Is Tracy and Ethan with you?
Yes.
Yes. Just want to make sure we know we got one board. Okay. This is the sketch plan for stormwater management identification deed waivers for the Dollar General store on the south side of East Franklin Street. This sketch plan is for the re-subdivision of a group of properties into 2 lots. The northern lot fronting East Franklin Street will be an 85 by 85 Dollar General retail store building and 20 parking spaces. Center of the site, southern lot. The building will be located and designed consistent with the design expectations found in Articles 4 and 5 regarding development in the CCNU zoning district. In order to obtain compliance with the intent of the ordinance while securing the important development for the downtown area, the zoning administrators determined that their intention to build a 1-story building that will have exterior construction finishes to appear to be a 2-story building meets the intent of the zoning ordinance, which requires the buildings to be at least 2 stories in height in the CCNU district. The Board of Zoning Appeals approved 3 variances to bulk requirements, including a variance to permit the building to be located as far as 10 feet from the Franklin Street right-of-way due to topographic issues. The zoning ordinance otherwise requires buildings to be built to the right-of-way. The southern lot will consist of a 58-car parking lot intended for use by Mary Rolfs. Frontage will be on Cannon Avenue via Pike Stem. 1 bay of parking will back directly into alley 4-46. And the drawing that you see there does well reflect the suggestions that we made to them regarding the best design of this lot to maximize all the parking possible. This is a little bit different from the plan that you saw when we workshopped it with you. We told you that we had made some suggestions on improving the parking, and this pretty much addresses everything that we recommended. Stormwater management, I included the Assistant City Engineer's memo regarding the issue of stormwater management. Regarding waivers, staff have identified several waivers to landscaping requirements that are necessitated by this design, including the minimum required 10-foot width of parking lot landscaping and the provision of landscaping islands on the ends of all parking bays. They are shown on the attached drawing highlighted in pink, so that is attached to your report as well. Staff has worked extensively with the applicant's designer to come up with a site design that meets the developer's needs to allow the project to move forward while maximizing compliance with the zoning and subdivision land development articles. The staff believes that the current design as pending will be an excellent infill development in the downtown area. Staff supports the waivers for these applicants. For household goods and some food products in the downtown, and additional parking as well. Some minor adjustments are wanted to promote both improvements in maximum utility and design of the site and the proposals. Staff reserves the right to identify additional issues once a site plan is submitted for official review. Staff recommends approval of the sketch plan and favorable feedback regarding the waiver issues.
The waiver issues are not in front of us tonight for decision.
No, the system is set up where they're being asked for your feedback so they know how to move forward with their site plan. Then they wouldn't be officially approved until the site plan comes in for approval.
Is there a possible way of bringing up the pink version?
I did not give that to Megan to put in the overhead, I don't think.
Because I've got questions about it. Well, if I could go, if you could bring it back, if I could come down and point at things.
Yeah, but it's
Discussion. This is the 10-foot area that you were talking about, right? You need more than a waiver for that, correct?
Yes, it's less than 10 feet wide.
All right, it's obvious, I mean, to me, it seems less than
engineering before rabbit out of that, but that's gonna be tough to do, because you look at the sheet where it shows the truck turning, that truck's gonna need all that distance. So. Oh. All right. Very good. Again, that's painted stripes on the macadam. And again, the trucks need that to get in. So we can probably raise that too, that's all right. Now you've got a pink line coming down here. What's that?
Requires a 10-foot landscaping buffer from all property lines, and this property is going to be subdivided into 2 lots. So it's a small reduction in the buffer distance between where the parking lot will begin and where the new property line will be. And it's really going to not really be particularly distinguishable anyway between the two properties. But they're showing that parking area to be about 8 feet from that new interior property line. So it'd be about 2 feet closer than what the ordinance would otherwise approve. But we recommend that they actually move everything a bit to the north anyway, in order to maximize the traffic circulation on the southern part of the property. So they actually did that in follow-up to a recommendation from staff.
But it's still going to allow them to have the 10-foot setback.
It allowed them to do so, they ended up moving 2 feet into the 10-foot setback. That's about 8 feet. Now keep in mind, there's nothing in this particular situation, there's nothing saying that they had, outside of the fact that they want to sell it to Mulberry Lofts. If they just built this as all parking for that store, we wouldn't be having a conversation. That's right, the property line.
It's the fact that you're providing that parking lot for the lofts.
Right.
So we could probably live with waiving that also?
Yeah, I think so.
And the next one's a double wire ban, down here, is that because of the property line?
Yes.
We can turn away that also? Otherwise, no.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't.
Got a triangle, shape right there. What is that? Oh, again, you're 10 foot off the property line.
10 foot off the property line and the pipe stems needed for driveway access.
We could probably live there also, everybody? Finally, then you decide our entrance road against property line. And we can probably leave that also.
I would say you can go there, those compete.
I mean, I think without those waivers, it's not going to work, so.
They're just my big toe, that's all.
Are you okay with the sign?
Sure.
Just make sure you.
See it? I think my voice is coming through, so whoever the applicant is can speak now.
Are they? That's,
They change themselves again.
Yeah, I can see that. So I think you've mostly covered what we have going on relative to the stormwater and the site plan. It was very difficult. I couldn't hear really much of what you were discussing other than the 8-foot separation in the landscaping strip. So I think, the one thing that we wanted to bring up is relative to the signage on the rear of the building, and that, Dollar General is very interested in being part of Hagerstown, but they've expressed some significant concerns about the visibility from Franklin and the intersection at Franklin and Cannon. So we wanted to present the architectural rendering this evening so that you guys could get a better understanding based on the conversation we had earlier in the month regarding the signage on the back of the building, and that's going to be really critical for us in this situation so that there's going to be adequate visibility, since cars are only coming from one direction, that people will be able to see the store and be able to react in a timely fashion to be able to be in the right lane and turning appropriately into the parking lot.
How big is the sign going to be?
They haven't given us square footages. Given the building is 85 feet wide, they've got plenty of sign square footage to work with. But this particular design is based on what staff recommended to them prior to the workshop, but at the workshop, you all had a discussion on other ideas. So that was me. And staff would also point out that the monument sign that's out in front of the building, street, appears to be the street right away, and that's not going to happen.
That's not what I suggested. I suggested a projection sign off the corner to that mounted sign. So it would be the corner of the parking lot and East Washington Street. Mounted on the side of the building or even on the corner, that would say Dollar General in vertical orientation. More so than what is shown in U2. That was my concern.
That's gotcha.
Max. Concern was, here's my thoughts were. That has been a city. Suggested as we sign projecting that's what I would like to see considered.
Zoning ordinance, there is a maximum of 8 square feet on projecting sign. Any larger than that, they would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance.
Those are my concerns.
Well, if I understand you, Steve, the detached sign, the projection to the right of way, that's not going to work anyway.
Not going to happen, no.
Will there be any separately detached sign?
As far as a freestanding sign goes,
Freestanding?
I think they're going to be challenged in coming up with something that fits in with the space that they have there, because their parking is pretty close up to the road, the building is close up to the road. They might be able to come up with something. I'm not going to say that they can't, but I think the circumstances are challenging. But as it's shown in the drawing, the pipe, the pole that the sign is standing on looks like it's right up to the street right away, which means half that sign's hanging into the right of way. That's not going to be allowed. Maybe they can come up with something. Like I said, I'm not going to say that they can't, but again, take a look at the drawing and notice that where the building and that parking lot is in relationship to the street right away. There's not a whole lot of room there.
I'm kind of, maybe I'm not reading this right, but if I read this right, I don't see that there's any signage that actually faces Franklin Street.
That is correct.
Right, which is why
Number 2.
that view too is so important, but
Okay.
And from someone,
Why would they not want to do that?
No, they do. I think we're trying to find a way to get a sign to face Franklin, right, coming in.
not necessarily
Somewhere.
East Franklin, but to
Traffic.
of people on Franklin.
Right, incoming.
Correct. When people come in for signage in the downtown area, we strongly encourage projecting signs because by the time somebody's driving in at 25, 30 miles an hour and they're on top of a building with a sign that's flat mounted on the front of the building, they've already passed it.
Right.
So we.
Yeah, that's our concern is that for cars sitting at the intersection of Franklin and Cannon, as they're getting ready to come through that intersection, we want them to be able to see the signage on the side of the building, the back side of the building facing them so that they're aware of where it's at instead of realizing, seeing the signage just as they get to the building in the parking lot. So it's really the visibility from Cannon and Franklin that is the concern here.
And in general, if you notice the north elevation, the one that faces Franklin Street, when you take into account that the other side of Franklin Street has some residences on it, over signage of that facade's probably not a good thing anyway. So this almost gives you, I wouldn't say it looks residential because it doesn't, but at least it kind of fits more into a mixed environment without having a bunch of stuff on that front facade facing Franklin.
Well, given we're not going to be able to have a freestanding sign, at least not likely, I kind of think that what they're proposing is reasonable, and visibility is problematic anyway.
It's important.
And so,
Jim, can you pull your microphone closer just in case?
I'm sorry. Basically, I don't really have any problem with the building mounted signage that they, given the circumstances and convey to them the real, the freestanding sign, don't have any control over that if it projects in.
Vertical sign could not attach to the building and projecting out. Would there not be enough room to do it on the building in a vertical form, or does that take away from the branding and instead of making it vertical like the movie theater? So it is kind of, it still as welcoming as the entrance to the city, right? Without this giant big sign that Doug's concerned about, but like putting it on the building itself in a vertical fashion.
Yeah. And it's hard to get things to go larger than something that's very unique condition. Tell them to bring it because it's not the easy to argue. Usually there you kind of get one reduction of something. You're asking for an expansion of something. So asking for a variance to increase the size of the site. You got what I'm saying would be problematic.
I'm not sure if I was maybe clear. On the building, I don't know if that is something that can, again, Dollar General has branding. I understand that as well as Doug does, too, but I don't know if that's something that, again, kind of helps the entrance to the city, right? It's one of the things that we've been concerned about, so maybe if we put it in a vertical fashion, flush mounted, just an option.
So just point out Signage.
Management. I want to ask about something that stood out to me. As I understand it, the traffic access onto Franklin Street is going to be, I mean, it's going to be left in and left out, right? Both crosses over. That create inherent conflict, cars coming out, so on the Franklin Street, we're concerned about traffic coming in. That's coming
Problem is if you try to traffic issues in the middle of that parking lot. Because again, the way this is going to be designed, the parking area that's on the front of the store, which is actually to the side of the street, is going to be kind of built a little bit in the back. The parking spaces that are going to be over by the alley are going to be closer to grade. So by the time you get over to the parking spaces that are in front of the building, if you notice there's like about 6 steps down.
Out when you get down towards City Hall, the parking lot there.
Yeah, there's other left in and left outs there. I mean, it's not, is it optimal? No. But given the circumstances, it's kind of is what you guys work with. Yeah.
And we're around 25 miles an hour. Right, Jim?
I would recommend they design, and have to only go out.
I couldn't hear you, Kathy.
So that's exactly why that area issue is why we recommend they redesign this so that the alleys could be used. You didn't always have to Franklin to be the site.
Okay.
You could, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, there are multiple ways of getting out of this.
I understand. It's a very, very challenging site.
I'm surprised that anybody never put it into it. Any other issues before we go to stormwater management? Motion to approve stormwater management. Should we decide now by motion the waivers or wait?
You do it like you do with all others.
I agree.
Just give them the feedback which they've been getting.
Yep.
This meeting, and just approve the stormwater management plan.
So if someone's ready.
So what are we approving the motion?
We're just approving stormwater management.
I would like to propose a motion that we approve the stormwater management as proposed by engineering.
Excellent.
Second.
We're ready to vote? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? passes unanimously. Still to go?
Yes, we were approached by
Tractor Supply, warehouse expansion.
Tractor Supply and Frederick Seibert Associates regarding some, in the grand scheme of the project, relatively minor changes that we're looking to deal with the parking on the site. I'll let Ed explain it in more detail. But the reason why it's in front of you is because you have granted waivers on this project in the past to maximize the parking with some requirements of the landscape island up toward the front. They're coming back asking for some additional, and they thought we could handle it administratively because they're minor. However, I have no authority to waive the requirements of the ordinance, and you're supposed to have a certain number of parking spaces in between your landscape, before you hit the landscape island. It's not my role, it's not my authority to approve that. So even though it's in the grand scheme of this project, it's pretty small. It's something I had to kick upstairs to you all. So I'll leave it for you to have a conversation with Ed on that.
Good evening. For the record, Ed Schreiber with Frederick Seibert Associates. As Steve mentioned, I'm going to use this rather than the one that's up there, because this shows the parking a little bit better. Move this up forward a little bit. You okay? Basically, what you see here is with the expansion that was recently approved and is under construction. Currently, there are 2 landscape islands, 9 by 18. One right here, one right here. That the business has been so good for Tractor Supply that they are in need of additional parking. Even if it is just 2 parking spaces, they have plenty of employees who are working there now, and any square inch that they can actually utilize for parking they need. And that's what they're asking for in this case would be I guess a modification. And I know we didn't actually go through the proper procedures, and I'm not sure all of the exact dialogue that has gone on, but we're willing to fill out whatever applications and pay whatever fees we need to in order to move forward. Also, so this would be actual pervious area right now, with one street tree in each one of these islands. We're offering to put additional street trees down here along the entryway into the property, to compensate, whether it be twice as many as required or however many these guys fit. Stormwater management wise, it's such an insignificant amount of impervious area that we would be adding to that. It would be about a half a gallon of additional water per minute that would be going into the stormwater management ponds, which is, again, already factored into the engineers to allow that type of, I guess, additional runoff. So with that being said, I'll try to answer any questions you may have. I'll do my best.
I like that. What you're asking for, what I'm seeing here, these 2 islands you want to remove?
Correct.
And how many parking spaces will they allow you to add?
2.
Just 2?
Yes.
That's all you need?
In this sea of, guys are desperate. In this sea of blacktop that we had out here, there are just 2 islands. Not only is this being all blacktop, this is all blacktop as well. And as Steve has mentioned before, you guys had granted previous modifications to allow the additional parking without the islands. Now they're just asking for these 2 additional islands not to be there in order to.
If I remember correctly, the number of employees you have working different shifts would allow you to sort of like what they call hot bunking on the submarine, 2 people using the same because they're not working the same shifts. So that's what you're doing now. You actually have more people than you have parking spaces, but because of the shift changes,
Correct.
You can take care of it.
It's a problem during the shift changes.
Okay.
And staff will point out that when the building was built, it was built in the county, and they have different parking standards that we have for warehousing and distribution. And as a result, their existing building was below our standards. Now, our standard, we're going to relook our standards because we think that maybe ours still might be a little bit high, but nonetheless, if they had built this in the city that would have been built previously with more parking, the way our ordinance is written, we can only require additional parking for the addition. So when the site plan was approved, they did provide more than our ordinance required for the space that is being added by the addition, because they need it, frankly, they do. So what they're doing is they're making up a deficit against what our ordinance, what their needs are and what our ordinance would require, because it was developed under our other standards. So they provided, I think, like 30 or 40 more parking spaces than the ordinance actually required for the addition they were adding. But still, if this was being built under our current standards from scratch at this size, it would still be less than what our ordinance would require, so.
You just don't have any additional space to add additional parking.
No, and it's, I mean, as you can see, we just put this addition on here, and really that is pretty much maximized every square inch of the site. They would have to actually purchase additional land, which I don't think they really have the opportunity to do, because we have wetlands and floodplain up and through here, and this is all stormwater management. So pretty much, you know, it's kind of a toss-up between truck, trailer parking or employee parking. We kind of need a balance of both.
Well, the reality about it is that employee parking lot abuts over to the wetland area anyway, so we have natural growth outside the property line. I don't see an issue with eliminating 2 islands.
Site parking, some type of shuttle.
That would be an option as well, yes.
That's something.
That's
Yeah, I understand that. I was just making the comment. You're gonna provide at least 2 more trees.
Yeah, so that would probably put at least 4 to 6 trees down in the entrance.
Keep going. That sounds like a plan.
You need to handle the wetland revision there.
Do you need a motion?
Motion to, let's just do a motion.
Yeah. I move that we approve this minor revision to the site plan.
Second. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I know the snowplow guys are going like this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's gotta be annoying.
All righty, we have no plan commission business, so, assume we're ready to adjourn. Here we are.
Also, we were having some microphone issues through Zoom, so hopefully we can troubleshoot and have that fixed.
Seems to be.
All said on his end, he could hear me most of the time. You could hear Steve talking, not distinguished, and couldn't hear any of you all.
Well, that's probably our fault because we're getting,
I think it's a combination of the settings on the microphone, far away from you all, and then the paper flipping and the motion.
Yeah, well, that
in
too.
front of the microphone. So, sorry about that. Work on it next time.
No lessons to learn, right? So if you could do a good job.